All right, what's going on, guys? Matt DeBary, dogpost.com here, talking some Georgia Bulldog recruiting. A lot to talk about today, so I'm just going to jump right in it. This upcoming weekend, Georgia plays Kentucky at home, coming off the embarrassing loss to South Carolina, and they will be hosting a five-star target. That's going to be tight end Eric Gilbert out of Marietta High School, a guy that Georgia's been recruiting for a long time now. But this is a really big visit because I don't think Eric has been back to Georgia since the summer. Lots of schools in the mix. Took his official visit to Texas A&M, I think September 20th. Last weekend took his official visit to LSU. So this weekend he will be taking his official visit to Georgia. Georgia needs two tight ends in this class. I still believe that. Darnell Washington, five-star tight end, took his official visit for the Notre Dame game, as did Theo Johnson. So this weekend will be Eric by himself. He's really the only major uncommitted target left on the board. Wide receiver Marcus Rosemy will also take his official visit to Georgia this weekend, but he's already on the commitment list. So Eric Gilbert, one of the top uncommitted targets for Georgia, will be in town this weekend. And he's a guy who I've seen a lot. I know him pretty well. I've seen him play a ton of times over here in the Marietta area. He can play 6'5", 250 pounds. He is a difference maker. As far as it relates to his recruitment, I thought Georgia was going to be the team to beat for a long time. Hasn't been to Athens in quite a bit, but at the end of the day, I think Eric wants to play wide receiver. He plays wide receiver at Marietta, catches a lot of passes, and he wants the ball. He's a difference maker. So I do think he wants to play wide receiver, but I also think that he's bought into playing tight end at Alabama. I don't know if he feels the same way about Georgia, but if you're a five-star tight end and you're watching Georgia this season, I know, if I'm a five-star tight end, Georgia's probably not at top of my list just based on how the offense has run so far. Charlie Warner's not caught a ton of passes. Eli Wolf, has had his opportunities, but it's not like Georgia's feeding the tight end. So they might, have to really step up the recruitment of Eric and make sure that he knows he's, will be a focal point of this offense if he decides to come to Athens. But, Tennessee is recruiting him a wide receiver. Alabama does a great job of getting their tight ends involved, and they produce tight ends at the next level really well. So you can't blame him for liking Alabama a lot there. He took a visit to Clemson. Everybody loves Clemson when they go over there. And then again, with what LSU's doing, I think LSU's really put themselves in a decent spot for Eric. And I think if he had to make a top five, that LSU would probably be in there with Clemson, with Alabama, Tennessee, and then Georgia, and maybe Texas A&M too. So there are still a few teams left in this. Georgia's going to get their shot to impress him this weekend. Big visit there. Also, like I said earlier, Marcus Rosemy is going to be in town. One of the top overall players in Florida and one of the top overall wide receivers in the country. He's already on the commit list. So big solid weekend for Georgia. Not like it was from the Notre Dame game, but it's still a good group. Last week, obviously they lost, but recruiting-wise, they had a lot of really top targets in town. Jordan Birch, five-star defensive end out of Hammond, was in town. He was at Athens, and that was big. He was there in May for the scavenger hunt, which is one of Georgia's biggest recruiting weekends. He also came in late July for the barbecue water balloon fight thing that they had, where, again, Georgia hosted some of their top targets in the country. So he was there in May, he was there in July, and he was back again this weekend. And they're really quiet about his recruitment. I don't know the latest. Georgia, Clemson, South Carolina, they all have a shot with him. So I'm sure Georgia would have liked to have beaten South Carolina with him in the stands, but I do think Georgia's going to be in the mix the entire way for him. But he was on campus. David Daniel, 2021 commitment, defensive back out of Woodstock, was in town. Isaiah Johnson, five-star cornerback in the 2021 class, was in town. So a lot of young guys. Cody Brown, running back out of Parkview. Lavasi Carroll, running back out of IMG Academy. Two of the top running backs in the 2021 class. They were both in town. So good, solid group, but the main guy was Jordan Birch, the five-star from Hammond. So, this is a recruiting podcast. I kind of want to keep it that way. But I don't see any commitments anytime soon. But just going back to that South Carolina game, that's a game I still can't believe they lost. Too much talent, too many turnovers there. I don't want to dig into the game too much, but I get questions all the time, like how does that affect recruiting? And it really doesn't. I know a lot of, commitments and their families might be like, ooh, how did that happen? Why did that happen? That was pretty ugly. But at the end of the day, no one is not picking Georgia because they lost to South Carolina, if that makes sense. That's not going to be the defining factor of their recruitment. That's why you play the game. And South Carolina came out and they wanted to win that game, and they played harder and they played better and all that. But it happens. Georgia should not have lost that game. But as it relates to recruiting, they're not going to lose a commitment because of that. They're not going to lose a current commitment. It's not like they're not getting a guy like Eric Gilbert or Darnell Washington or Noah Sewell or Keely Ringo because they lost to South Carolina, if that makes sense. But as far as it relates to those guys, I still think Georgia's in a really good spot for Noah Sewell. Keely Ringo, he took his official visit to Oregon, and I think that has turned into a Georgia-Oregon battle for Keely Ringo and Noah Sewell. So 5-star cornerback Keely Ringo. I do think it's a Georgia-Oregon battle. Texas still in the mix a little bit, but I do think it's down to the Dogs and the Ducks. And then same with Noah Sewell. He's got a brother on the offensive line for Oregon right now. Really good player, actually. One of the best offensive linemen in the country. So he's got some family ties there. And at the end of the day, I think with Keely Ringo, I think it's going to be a 5-star, a Georgia-Oregon battle for another 5-star, being Noah Sewell, the linebacker from Warren High School in Utah. Darnell Washington took a visit to Florida 2 weeks ago when Florida beat Auburn. Again, I still think Georgia leads for 5-star Darnell Washington. Florida, I think, might have gotten themselves in the mix. I heard that was a very good visit, but at the end of the day, I still think Georgia is the leader behind the scenes there, and are currently in the best spot. As it relates to Theo Johnson, 4-star tight end, just inside the Canadian border right there in Detroit, kind of. But no, that Michigan, Penn State, Iowa, those are the schools that Georgia's trying to beat there. Lots of talk about Penn State. They're a hot program right now. He likes Penn State a lot. They're doing really well, and obviously, being close to Michigan, he's got some ties and a little bit of, not necessarily people pulling him to Michigan, but there's always a little bit of pressure to stay close to home. So Penn State, Michigan are going to be tough to beat, but I still think Georgia is very much in the mix there. So, I think we hit all the 5-stars. I mean, Georgia's got 16 commitments right now, and the rest are 5-star targets. 5-star Darnell Washington, 5-star Noah Sewell, 5-star Keely Ringo, 5-star Jordan Birch. And then another running back, maybe 5-star Zach Evans. So lots of targets left out there, but they're 5-star, high 4-star guys. So, just wrapping this up again, Eric Gilbert will be in town this weekend for his official visit. I do think Georgia is trailing Clemson and Alabama right now, maybe trailing LSU as well. He was in LSU last weekend to watch them beat Florida. So I think LSU definitely took a step in their in his recruitment. So Georgia's kind of fighting some guys there, but big visit this weekend. We'll see what Georgia can do. Obviously, his mother will be there with him. That's a big deal. So we'll see how that goes. Marcus Roseme in town as well. I don't believe Keely Ringo is visiting anywhere. He still has to set up his official visit to Georgia. Not sure when that will be, but obviously I'll keep you guys posted on that over on Dog Post. So good week of visitors for the South Carolina game. I don't think the loss affected recruiting. Again, just wanted to say that again. And then this upcoming weekend is the Kentucky game with official visitor 5-star Eric Gilbert. So if you missed anything, if I didn't answer your question, head on over to DawgPost, DAWGPOST.com, and I will get your recruiting questions answered there. Again, thanks for listening, watching, everyone on YouTube, and I will see you guys over on the site. Y'all have a good one.